I want everyone to know, first off, who I am. I want them to get to know me personally, because that's, I think, the biggest connection or the biggest motivator is getting to know the real person behind it. The one thing that everyone has said about my shows is that I want that they feel like they could be standing on stage with me doing the same thing, that I'm a guy living a dream with talent. But I want to be able to show how you can overcome adversity over and over and over again.
Hey there, welcome back to another episode of American Snippets. I'm your co-host, Barb Allen. So very excited to be here today with Ryan Weaver. What's up? You're just going about your life and people pop up on your radar and you wonder, how the heck have I not been connected to this person before in my life? That is what happened to me when I saw Ryan Weaver. And when you get to hear his story and we talk about what he's doing now and why he's doing it, you are going to feel exactly the same way. Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down today and talk with us.
Well, it's an honor to get to chat with you as well. You and I had some great conversations leading up to this interview, and I'm extremely honored to have some time to get to chat with you a little bit about what we've got going on.
Yeah, perfect. So tell everybody first off your background and what I'm referencing. People who have been following us for a while know that I am a Gold Star wife, know that that's my tie to the military community. You have also served and you have more in common with us, unfortunately, than that. So go ahead and tell us your background here for a minute.
Well, I think the biggest thing that ties us together right now is that we are both Gold Star family members, and I'm a two-time Gold Star family member. I was a Black Hawk helicopter pilot in the Army, first military intelligence, then became a warrant officer and flew Black Hawks. My brother and I were deployed to Iraq together in 2003 and 2004, and he was a cancer survivor, was non-deployable, had to get bi-monthly blood screenings for his cancer to make sure that it was still in remission, and he was flying to Baghdad Hospital when the medevac helicopter, he was a passenger and was shot down and everyone was killed on board. I came back from Iraq to his funeral and also was non-deployable at that point due to the Sole Survivor Act. My brother-in-law, Randy, was flying in Afghanistan in 2013, and he was shot down in the Black Hawk that he was piloting. Everyone except for a passenger in the back was killed. And we became a two-time Gold Star family on December 17th in 2013. Having said that, I think that we both know that that's not what defines who we are, but it is a part of who we are. And my history in the military with almost 21 years of active duty service also doesn't define what I'm doing right now, but it is a big part of the story as to what's happened now with my life post-military. So I'm happy to say that I've been able to deal with those losses in the best way possible, but my life is completely different than it was back then.
Yeah. And those things absolutely disrupt the path that you're on, to put it minimally, and set you on another course. Like they pick you up and shake you and move you and put you down over here. And then you just have to pick up from where you are and figure out where the heck to go from there. So first off, thank you for your service. And did I see also that your sister also served?
We're actually a family of military. My grandfather was a belly gunner in World War II. My dad was a Marine. My oldest brother, Steve, was an aviator. Aaron, who was killed in action, was an aviator. I was an aviator. Steve is actually still an aviator. My oldest brother, he's my half brother by adoption. So that'll explain a couple of things as far as the Sole Survivor Act is concerned. Then my sister, Regina, was also Air Force. So we have a full military family.
That is outrageous. That's just wild in itself, like every little piece of the story. And so for me, everybody attaches a story to themselves and has to relate to their lives, right? So for me, being a Gold Star wife and knowing that like enormous risk in life and loss and pain, I'm also a parent, and I'm a parent of kids who are now the same age as military personnel who are deployed. and being killed and being wounded. So I look at it as a parent too. And I'm wondering, how have your parents, how did they, I mean, even before tragedy hit, how were they with you all serving and,
Well, I think that because we had a family of military service and a background of military service, it was almost, when we were growing up as kids, my oldest brother, Steve, he was in the Ranger Regiment, and we kind of followed, he was our superhero even back then. It was kind of one of those things. My dad was a police officer prior to, he's not a police officer anymore, but he was a police officer when Steve joined the military. So we almost had that, part of our lives that was, you had that risk that was inherent because my dad was a police officer. But once we all got in the military, it was before 9/11, it was garrison, everybody was just training. And if something was going to happen, it'd be through a training accident. It wouldn't necessarily be through combat. Right. Then 9/11 happened, and I was at flight school when the towers fell, and my mom called me in the middle of flight school and told me when the first plane hit and woke me up. And then I watched the second plane hit on the news, and I told her we were going to war. I knew immediately that we were going to war. There was no way around it at that point that I could see. And it was, everybody's lives changed that day, and the way that we felt about our security and the way that we lived our lives. It was kind of ironically beautiful at the same time because we came together as a nation, but also, we knew as a family that we were going to be finding ourselves in combat. I mean, it was part of what you signed on the line for. No one can ever prepare you for the loss. That's a whole different ball game. No one's prepared for that. They don't have manuals on that, especially when it comes to losing your only full-blood sibling and who you followed in their footsteps your entire military career, with exception of going to Ranger Regiment. I was never that tough, but my mom, it was just part of what her dad served, her uncle served, so she had a history of military as well on her side of the family, and it was part of it was almost part of our DNA to serve. So, I can't say the best way to describe the way my parents handled it, but they were 100% without question supportive of what we were doing and knew that there were inherent dangers, especially because we were aviators as well. I mean, every time you come off the ground in a helicopter, you don't know whether you're coming down the same piece or not. It's not designed to fly. It's designed to crash, as they tell us in flight school.
Oh, that's comforting.
Yeah. Well, a helicopter is not going to stay up in the sky by itself. So, but it can definitely hit the ground by itself.
Wow.
Anyway, bad way of thinking about it, but it's the absolute truth in the aviation field.
Yeah. No, just because it's true doesn't mean it has to be good, right? So
right.
Even bad truths are truths, and you got to acknowledge them. So, talk then. When did you decide to leave the military?
I actually retired from the military with almost 21 years in 2012. So at 20 years, 8 months, and 7 days, I give you the hours if I remember.
How old were you how old were you when you went into the military?
I was 18. I went straight out of high school.
Crazy.
Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah, straight out of high school, retired at 39. So it was pretty cool to be able to say I had a retirement check at 39. But that's also, had I not done that, I wouldn't have been able to chase this dream in country music, because I'd be flat broke and having to find 16 different jobs to try and pay for it.
which a lot of, and that is obviously where we are going next. But before we go into what path you're on now, I want to spend a couple minutes on when you got out of the military. Were you married at that time?
I was not. I was divorced, actually. I got divorced in the middle of flight school, actually. Okay.
Which is a very common story in all lines of service.
Divorce is something that happens. Yeah, happens a lot with folks, and obviously in the military, it's something that you have to be a special breed of spouse, whether it be a wife or husband, and kids. You have to be special breeds of family members, because you're dealing with that loved one being gone all the time, and also the inherent risk of them not coming back. Yes. That's always there. It's inevitable that when you end up in those situations, that folks are going to be feeling that way on occasion. So, I got divorced in the middle of flight school, but then I was single for quite some time, but when I retired from the military, I was single when I moved up to Nashville.
And you moved to Nashville to follow that dream that you had,
Yep, which is singing country music. I wanted to. Everybody has asked me since I started this what my goal in country music was, and it's to have people singing my songs in sold out arenas, and it was kind of cool how that all came full circle this past year.
Yeah, I mean, you are soaring,
and
trying. The fact that I had not come across you before doesn't mean that. I mean, obviously, I did come across you, right? And I feel like my experience coming across you is going to become more and more common, more and more heard of. More and more people are going to be coming across you because you're just taking over. And your music, I freaking love it. Your song, by the way, is Never Forgotten. I can't really make it through that song, but that's a good thing.
Neither can I.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's the point, right?
I wrote it, and if you could imagine, when every time that was performed in excuse me, every arena across the nation last year, and at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas for the PBR World Finals, Professional Bull Riders World Finals, and when I replaced Steven Tyler as the headliner, but we honored our fallen that night. And if you can imagine the way the show went was Never Forgotten was played. I'm standing in the middle of the arena on what's called the shark cage, and it's right out in the middle. And as soon as they would play that video, they would honor a local fallen local fallen hero's family, and then I had to sing the national anthem. So I'm sitting here with the earplugs in, my in-ear monitors in, and I had to turn them off because the last verse where it says "reminded of you in your daughter's eyes," I can never make it through that part of the song watching the video and without losing it. And so imagine trying to sing the national anthem with tears running down your face, and it's like cats in a water bucket. It's just horrible. Anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, it just makes it more powerful, and it takes a lot of strength to get through something like that and push it. And I'm sure it impacts a lot of people. There's really nobody in life that hasn't lost somebody close to them that they love. So everybody can relate. But then the people, military, law enforcement, first responders who go through that particular loss and watching that video, it's an extra. It's extra.
But there's a lot of,
but it's good. Really cool. It's beautiful.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff in that video that a lot of folks don't know. So the folks that are listening to this, if you want to take the time to go watch it, just to kind of give everybody a little bit of a background on that video, if that's cool.
Yes, please.
So Rich Miller, he's the detective that speaks at the beginning about raising the flag on Tower 2's antenna. That he has not talked about that in an interview ever. Oh. That's the first time that he's actually told that story in a public forum, because he's been asked by Fox News and CNN. I mean, every major news network that's out there, when it happened, he was asked. But the video of him hanging that flag was inside it was taken inside the frozen zone. So until the investigation on what happened was done, nobody knew that happened except for the people inside the frozen zone, because everything that was happening inside the frozen zone couldn't be talked about. So if you remember the flag that the firefighters hung that turned into a postage stamp and all that, it was done because of that flag that he raised. But he talked about it in this Never Forgotten tribute video. The families from the 9/11 heroes, I don't call them victims, I call them heroes, but the 9/11 heroes, the families, they were responding. If you go watch that again, they were responding to seeing those lockers for the first time. They had not seen those lockers that were frozen from the day that happened, and the memorial lockers that they did, which was incredible. To know that you're getting a very genuine reaction. Both my family members are in there. We got almost all of our family together for that video. There's a one scene of us on the dock. That was my high school that we were in. That was my dad and my brother. That was my dad and my brother looking at my brother's memorial that they put out in front of our county courthouse in Citrus County, or our city courthouse, but in Inverness. There's just a ton of stuff that's in there. And then, you have a Border Patrol agent, the Dallas police officers that were killed in that attack in Dallas, but a Border Patrol agent that was killed in a drug bust. All of their families were in this. And, it was a pretty, it was one of those moments. I co-wrote the song actually with Taylor Swift's drummer, Matt Billingsley, and a couple other gentlemen, but, to be able to co-write the song and turn it into a music video at that, and then have it played in every major arena with no song on the radio, no management, no record label, nothing, and headline all those shows as the primary entertainment for the professional bull riders, it was just an incredible experience. But to be able to honor those families and get to meet so many American heroes across the spectrum of heroes, not just military, but across the spectrum of heroes. It was incredible. It was an awesome experience to get to, especially with that video. So if anybody out there wants to go watch something that is actually worth watching, I think that one's a good one to do.
I do too. And, I've obviously seen a lot of videos. I've been to a lot of events that honor people. And I think, again, as a family member of a soldier, who was killed, I know the enormous amount of trust it takes for those families to participate in something like that. And I know the amount of people that can come at the families almost like to exploit them and, exploit the, the pain and the gore and the shock and trauma just for their tease or something. So I think all around you handle that beautifully, A, to get through that on your own, as personal as it was to you, B, so that those families trusted you enough and you could tell it was genuine there, and C, in the way that you honored that trust. So
well, I have to give the PBR a lot of credit on that, because the professional bull riders, Rich Miller helped me get the 9/11 families. They had the Dallas police officer families and the Border Patrol agent, because the Border Patrol agent was one of their primary sponsors. So they reached out. So I have to give the PBR a lot of credit. Corey Kelly, the guy who directed and produced the video, really took the message of the song and took them and created something that was extremely poignant, that is meaningful, and has, one of the things that I think a lot of us in our community, we get focused on just honoring, our little microcosm, because our own lives are microcosms,
right.
But our microcosms of heroes, and usually if it's military, you're honoring military. And right. This gave me an opportunity, because my father being a police officer, my uncle being a firefighter, my brother-in-law being a police officer, I have a family of police officers and firefighters in my family as well. Yeah. And to be able to honor all heroes across the board. And then I really got to know a lot about the Border Patrol, and what they do. And it was just an awesome opportunity to get to do that. But the PBR really stepped up when it came to creating that video and allowing me my creative freedom to write the video write the song. But they really did it up. They did it right.
Awesome. And so, let's talk about that. You are the headline entertainment. Your name is almost synonymous with the PBR now, right? So, and
it was this past year. Yep.
Yeah. As you mentioned, you don't have a label. You're not out there on the radio. And anybody who has tried to break into any industry will know how difficult that is. To break into an industry, but the performing arts industry, I think, is especially difficult when you're trying to do that. And I'm dying to hear how you manage that, because there are so many people, and I want everybody who is trying to break into something and chase that dream to pay close attention to this part, because so many people expect to go in, or they see you, for instance, exploding overnight, and they're like, oh, that guy's got it easy now. But they don't see all the work that has gone into this and all the work that continues to go into it. They just see what's happening right now before them. So talk about how you can, as one person on your own, with no experience in the industry, barge into an industry and kind of you craft it around your own self without going the conventional path.
Well, I will say this: I'm going to be a 13-year overnight success. I'm not an overnight success. It took me 13 years to even get to this point. So it wasn't something that, all those overnight successes that happen out there, there are very, very few that go from nothing to huge. If ever, does that happen. But for me, this is a kind of a long story, and I'll try and give you the bulleted version of it. But I started off in the club, or started off singing karaoke and singing competitions in flight school to help me pay my bills. And I didn't realize, so it was later in life. I didn't even know it was something, and I was winning. I didn't realize it was something I was good at doing. I didn't realize it was something I enjoyed doing. And then I just started doing it for fun. And then but I was like, hey, well, people are responding to what I'm doing. Let me try and get in a karaoke competition. And I did, and I won. And then I went to Iraq and combat, and all that happened with Aaron. And I started writing songs in Iraq, and I realized it was something also that I enjoyed doing, because I did poetry and stuff like that in high school, but never really did the songwriting thing, because I played the violin, but I wasn't super talented at it by any stretch of the imagination. I enjoyed it, but anyway, so went to Iraq, all that stuff happened with Aaron, and I decided, I was letting my life pass me by, and I followed in Aaron's footsteps to be an aviator. But quite honestly, Aaron and Steve enjoyed flying a lot more than I did. I thought it's cool to be able to say that I was an aviator, but I always like shooting straight with people. It was, to me, much more technical. They are so much smarter than I am, but for me, it was just much more technical than enjoyable. And plus, most of my flight hours were in combat. So everything was, you didn't know whether you're coming back, because we had aircraft getting shot down left and right. And that's why when I talk, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent.
That's okay. Please do. Yeah.
That's why I say, when the guys that are handling this stuff on the ground, that do this on a day-to-day basis, I'm not, I went to combat, but I never had to deal with that stuff. And I can't say that I would know how I would deal with it, but that's why I have an immense amount of respect for, our combat forces, the infantry, the combat MOS's jobs out there, just because I couldn't imagine having to deal with that. So back to where I was at, but, so I started, doing songwriting over there, and then Aaron died, came back to his funeral, and then was redeployed back to Fort Rucker. They had the Fort Rutgers Military Idol competition. I don't know if you remember, there was a military idol competition that they did around the military, and I actually got runner-up. The guy who won went to nationals, and because he was gone, I got to open up for Tracy Lawrence and Daryl Worley for Fort Rutgers' 50th anniversary. And essentially all I did was sing tracks, but I also met the Army rock band that was playing off post. There were 3 non-commissioned officers that had a band that were playing off post at the bars, and they needed country music to mix in with them. So that was on a Saturday. Their next gig was on Thursday. They said, we rehearsed on Wednesday. It was nothing but cover songs, but I sent them all the cover songs that I knew, and they already knew them all. So I just started playing the small bar scene around Enterprise, Alabama, and Dothan, Alabama, around Fort Rucker. I made a goal for myself that every 6 months I was going to move to larger clubs and larger venues. I started branding Ryan Weaver and Ride, or RYDE. We ended up evolving through the branding process with that, or I ended up evolving through the branding process to make myself a solo artist as opposed to a band, which was a big thing to start focusing on the business side of it, and not just the passion of loving music and chasing after it. But I had to focus on that branding aspect. Moved to the medium-sized clubs within 6 months, moved to larger clubs within 8 months, and then was opening for national acts within a year, doing the festival and national act scene. But I set goals to do that. I established relationships with promoters, with club owners. I had a band that I played with for a short period of time that already had bigger clubs under their belt because of a different artist that they worked with. So I escalated pretty quickly. But I was also traveling back and forth to Nashville almost every other weekend if I wasn't doing a show. And I attended a George Jones University. It was actually, by the way, George Jones, when I won a singing competition for the radio station down there right after the Military Idol. My first opening national act was George Jones.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty killer to be able to say that. But so I was traveling back and forth to and we did this George Jones University thing. It was essentially $300 to hand your business card out. It was something that I felt that was, I got invited by several folks. They said it would be a great networking opportunity, and they were going to have some great speakers there to give you a little insight on the music business for outsiders coming in. And one of the first people that got up and spoke, and this is one of the most important things that I tell everybody whenever they say, my son or daughter's getting into the business. Can you give me some advice? So Wayne Halper, he was the chief operating officer, I believe it was, for Capitol Records when Garth Brooks took off. And he's a lawyer now, an entertainment lawyer and whatnot. But he was, when Garth Brooks took off, he got to see that meteoric rise. And he said, the first two things he said, I'm going to shoot straight with you. He said, there are two things that you need to know, or two things about the music business that are going to help you, that are going to make you successful. And talent isn't one of them. And I said, I don't necessarily believe that, because you got to have some talent, even said, but he said, who you know and how much money you have. Those are the two things that are going to make you successful in the music business. And a lot of folks say, oh, it starts with a song and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I agree with you that it starts with a song. There's so many different peripheral things that you can say that it starts with. But the bottom line is this: who you know is going to get you the best possible song that you can have, that's going to get you out, that's going to get you noticed by a record label. Who you know is going to get you noticed by a record label. Who you know is going to get you the money that you're going to need to pay for that record, or for the record label to want to invest in you. So the who you know is really the most important part, but you can't do any of it without money. You can't promote songs. You can't get music videos done. You can't get any of that stuff done. So on the very basic value of it, it's who you know and how much money you have. It's the same in any business. It really is. Your networking possibilities are what are going to make, I mean, you as well as I know, we just even talking with each other on what you've got going on with this conference coming up. The folks that you get to know show the credibility that you have as an artist, or as a speaker, or as a
business person,
a business person, period. And so for me, he said, there are 1,000 people that come. As soon as he got done saying that, he said, there are 1,000 people who come to Nashville with a guitar and a dream a day. And there are 1,000 people that leave Nashville with an empty guitar case because they had to sell their guitar to get back home, because they didn't learn about the music business. Has nothing to do with how much you care about it. That's what's going to keep you here. What's going to pay your bills is the music, is learning about the music business. And if you are broke, you aren't going to stay here. So that's really what it boiled down to. And it's brutal, but it's business. I mean, it is absolutely brutal in its business. So that was the advice that I got when I first got started. So I started coming back, going back and forth in the town and networking with folks and trying to market myself as best possible, become more experienced, build a fan base. And it takes time. It takes money, it takes effort. And my first band will tell you, I was the first one there, bringing in the sound, bringing in the banners, bringing in all that stuff. They'd bring in their instruments. We'd do our sound check. I would take it all. I was the last one to leave in all of our bar shows, until I got to the point to where I could have a production company do my sound for me. But I was that first person there and back, and worked my tail off to get to that point. So anyway, now let's move forward to 2014. I think it was 2014. 2014, when I was going into town in 2007, I wrote a song called Crank It. And it was the very first song I ever wrote in Nashville. And I actually got a writing appointment with somebody because I was paying a consultant to get me relationships with folks.
Which people don't understand, all those steps you have to take, and you have to invest, and handing over that money when you don't have it and you're worried about your bills. You're like, well, either you want
I was
this,
fortunate I was on active duty. I was fortunate I was on active duty and still had a paycheck at the time. But I mean, what a lot of folks, if you don't have relationships in town and you don't live in town, you have to create relationships in town. And one of the ways to be able to do that is to pay somebody to help you get relationships. And it sounds horrible. And would I recommend that to anybody? No, I would recommend you moving to Nashville and spending that same money on an apartment for a couple of years. That's what I would say. But to roommate with somebody for a couple of years. But having said that, I co-wrote a song. It was Crank It that we got, and then we crowdfunded the music video. I got the music video funded through crowdfunding, and we put that out, and that actually escalated my ability to charge more money for shows. Because once you have something out on national television, everybody's paying attention to it, and so on and so forth. Still didn't have a song on the radio, still didn't have a record deal, still didn't have management. Put the video together, all that stuff, got it funded. So that got done. And then we went a couple of years of just doing shows, and getting a little bit more of a fan base here and there. And then I really started focusing on, getting, it was actually 2012, into 2012. Yep. It was the end of 2012. It wasn't 14. So because the reason I say that is because then at that point, I was transitioning out of the military, working 2 part-time jobs as a bar back, a personal trainer, and going to college full-time for my degree in aeronautics. And then I was trying to get myself back on my feet. And if you could imagine a little bit on the personal side, still had child support, still had kids, my kids doing sports, still had all that stuff going on. And I was broke. I was straight up broke. And then I met my wife. And then I became the richest man in the world.
Oh.
But it sounds corny, but it's the truth.
No, I love that stuff. We'll circle back to that later.
Yeah. So I met my wife, and her dad was nice enough to give me a job with a salary. And he said, if you work 3 hours, I know you need to do music. If you work 3 hours a week or you work 90 hours a week, you're going to get this salary that's going to help you pay your bills. And I started working with her as a corporate meeting planning and her corporate meeting planning business. And that afforded me the opportunity to go out on rights. It afforded me the opportunity to go out and do shows. And still my bills were paid because I was not doing music when I was working 2 jobs and going to college full time. No. I just didn't have the opportunity there was no time. Once again, that's the reason why everybody says it's who you know and how much money you have. Really, even on a personal level, it was who I knew. So, that then 2015, we started the concept for Burn. I actually got introduced to the Charlie Daniels group of folks here in town. And David Corlew, Charlie Daniels' manager, was kind enough to invite me to come play the Ryman Auditorium and open up for Charlie at the Ryman Auditorium, and then Bridgestone Arena for the Volunteer Jam. Met the Benghazi guys, John.
And that's where you met them?
And that's where I met them. They were promoting the movie. Okay. It was right before the movie came out. John and Tig Tigan and Mark Ozgeist were promoting the movie at the time. And I met them, and I started talking to Oz actually initially and about getting a song that I had already written into the movie. How hard would that be? And he said, well, we got to get it recorded, and we'll see what we can do. And then John actually started becoming more actively involved in that process because Mark got really busy, which happens. It's the business and what he was doing. They were promoting the movie, but John actually got really active and got Paramount to give me the authorization to use the trailer clips from the movie in there. We ended up getting Chris Peranto on board with John, and those two really spearheaded helping me getting the music video funded. And it turned into, just this monster of I think it's
super cool. Yeah.
Skyrocketed in my career really at that point, because the video was all over the world. Everybody was loving it. It was not going to be on CMT because people are shooting guns and stuff like that. So it's a little bit more focused on the Second Amendment, shooter world, tactical world kind of thing. And it's an entertainment piece as well. But we also honored the Benghazi Four and my 2 brothers in that. And that video got me a concert called Freedom Fest out in Colorado. And I got to open for Dokken, Warrant, and Great White. And that's where the CEO of the Professional Bull Riders, Sean Gleason, was in the front row, and he was the primary sponsor for it. So I got up on stage, and I won't say exactly what I said when I got up on stage, but it was a biker rally, and I was the only veteran on the bill, and it was a veteran nonprofit event. And you had 3 80s rock bands, and I was opening for them. And I got up on stage, and we did 3 songs, and Oz actually had driven 2.5 hours to come watch the show and come up on stage with me when I was singing Burn and that kind of stuff. And I got 3 songs into the show, and Dokken's manager came up on stage and told my acoustic player that we were done to get off because Dokken wasn't going to start late. Yep. And I'll tell anybody this story because they treated everyone like dirt at that concert.
What?
I'll call them on it any day. I could care less. Anyway, so yeah, they told me to get off stage, and I didn't know about it. I was on the front of the stage. So my wife is filming with the with a phone, and I find out I get done singing, and Trey, my bass player at the time, he's also the bearded guy in my music video. But Craig, my acoustic player, who's in the Burn music video as well. He's the one that he talked to. Anyway, all that aside, I found out about it and I turned around and I just started dropping F-bombs like nobody's business. And it's a veterans but it's a veterans biker rally. It's at a bar. It's like, I mean, it's an 80s rock show. It's an 80s rock show. They can handle it. It's all military. I think that they were okay. It was not necessarily, I would say, a family conducive environment for any kind of a kid to be at anyway. But having said that, so I just told him, I said, I'm the only veteran on this bill. They brought me out here to raise money for my brothers and sisters in arms. The headliner Dawkins just told me that I was not going to finish, that I'm done right now. And I said, you know what? I'm finishing my set. Anyway, I still hadn't got to talk about Aaron and Randy. I was on stage and I still didn't get to talk about them. And I made a promise to myself every time that I had an opportunity when I was on stage that I would tell their story. And I wasn't going to let that pass me by. Well, when I got done with it, Sean Gleason came up to me. I didn't know who he was, the CEO of the Professional Bull Riders. And he handed me his business card, said, I work with the PBR. I've got some stuff going on. I'd love to get you involved in it. I said, great. And I said, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. I've heard great things about the PBR. They're an immensely patriotic organization. And then there are 50 other people that I was talking to, and I always make sure that if I'm standing in front of somebody, they feel like their time is the most important time that I'm giving them. And, not my time, but their time is the most important time. And I spent that time with him, and then I went up and signed autographs. He came up, bought some stuff, did the same thing, went back to my RV and saw that the bus that they had set up and saw that it was the CEO of the PBR. And I'm like, holy crap. So I went out there and I said, I'm sorry, I didn't know who you were. And he's like, no. He said, Ryan, I sat back and I watched how you treat people. And he said, you make every single person feel like they're the most important person standing in front of you. And you give them the time. And he said, and that's what the PBR is about. And that's exactly why I want you on board with what we're doing. So that was 2016. It took us till 2017 to sign a contract at the Celebrate America EP that's out there if you want to get that recorded. We recorded that in Legend Studio. I actually sang on the last microphone that Johnny Cash sang on for the High Women's album. It was the very last one that he recorded on. Wow. So all of those songs were recorded on that in the same studio, which is killer to think. And then Steven Tyler from Aerosmith was a headliner at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas in 2016, and I was a headliner in 2017. And then my very first show with the Professional Bull Riders was Madison Square Garden in 2018, and then I got to sing the national anthem for Trump Jr. On Sunday for that one too. So it was pretty incredible. And then we just went across. We went across the United States and all the major arenas this past year, and I also started doing corporate motivational speaking at the same time to tell everybody about it. So that brings me to, I'll go ahead and I'll let you ask out of that. I'll stop talking. That's that's where the music is up to this point.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, good. So no, I love it. I could listen to this all day. It's great. All of it's great. What you said about relationships, building relationships, this is hard to, I keep emphasizing the same points in certain people when I hear them pick up on a theme that is so important for people to understand. We learned, I learned, trial by fire, the relationships that you have determine your prognosis for every day, really, like who you have in your inner circle close to you and who you relate to, and not even who you know, but who knows you, who is going to be the person who your name pops in their head, when they hear an opportunity. And how do you do that? And that's by adding value, not by just meeting somebody and saying, hey, can you get me this or that? Right. It's like, hey, how can I help you or be of service to you? And that's a very hard thing for people to grasp when you're kind of desperate and fighting in the trenches and you see someone who can help you. But you've mentioned your wife a few times. What is her name?
Kara.
How did you guys meet?
Volleyball, actually. There's a big volleyball community up here in Nashville, sand volleyball and indoor volleyball community. And I was playing volleyball. Yeah, I had actually done a mini triathlon that morning, and but there's a tournament I got invited to come and play it. And I say a tournament, but there's a guy that, north of Nashville that has 4 professional volleyball courts set up in his backyard with a pool in the middle of them all and a grill. Yeah. I mean, he does volleyball for a living. Essentially he hosts tournaments and whatnot, but, he does that and travels, but great little setup. But she actually wasn't supposed to be there that day. Her sister was supposed to have her birthday party and she canceled it. So she just decided to come and play volleyball. And then We hit it off as friends immediately, and then I think I fell in love with her instantly, but I was friend zoned at first because I was a volleyball player, and she had rules about volleyball players and that kind of thing, but I really wasn't in the volleyball community. I was just kind of there. But it's actually kind of funny, the laundry list of things that she said she would never date, and I hit every one of
All
them.
Never say never, right?
Yep. And here we are over 5 years later, married. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. That is great. And how important is it to have that spouse and that partner who understands your drive to do something and supports it the way that she seems to do?
She has to be incredibly understanding in a lot of circumstances. I think that, there's a lot of give and take when it comes to, giving me up to when I'm in the public forum. Mm-hmm. She understands that I'm essentially, I belong to the crowd at that point. And I'll always belong to her, but she has to be able to know. She knows
you out.
Yeah. But she also, there's as far as the take is concerned, she also knows that she doesn't have to worry about, I pay attention to everybody and nobody at the same time is what I usually like to say. When it comes to, the crowds and the girls and the guys now too, whatever, because I wear a cowboy hat, I guess is the thing. But anyway, I give everybody equal attention. I don't, it doesn't matter what a girl looks like or how flirty she is, or if somebody's, being inappropriate, she knows that I'm not gonna, I don't pay attention to it. I'm grateful that people care and that they're, but if it doesn't have the right reason for it, she knows I won't pay attention to it. If they're just being nice, there's a difference between being, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But she's, and also,
the difference, yeah.
Yeah. But I also travel a lot, and I'm out there, I'm on the road all the time, and she's on the road in different places. And especially with the PBR, she couldn't attend every one of those events. And you're talking about playing a major arena every weekend, essentially, with them. And she can't be at every one of them, but obviously there's a level of trust. But having said that, she waited till after she was 40 to get married the first time. I got married once before, and then I waited over 10 years to get married a second time.
Yeah.
So we're a little bit more grown up than, yeah. We've each got our past relationships and different things like that, but that level of trust definitely has to be there. But as far as the support is concerned, and me chasing my dreams, I think, when she's in the crowd, she sings every word to every one of my songs. She's one of my biggest fans, and if not my biggest fan. It's hard to say she's a bigger fan than my mom is, but I think she is. Having her out there in the audience, it's great when she's there. But I also know that she trusts me when it comes to the decisions that I make on the business side of things. And because straight up, when I first moved in with her and I had to start getting back into this, I was broke. I didn't have any money, and it took me several months to get back on my feet. And had it not been for her generosity and taking care of me, it's nice to be able to finally give back to that relationship, that giving relationship. But she was there to support and believed in everything that I was doing. And if I needed to do something, and she was there to be able to support it regardless. So yeah, it's extremely important to have that. And even if, if folks are listening and they don't have a spouse, and this sounds corny and they're like, oh, well, I'm single and I completely understand where you're coming from. But I won't ever use that as an excuse as to being less successful, because it all boils down to me first and my heart and desire to get it done. Those extra support structures are really important. I agree.
Yeah. But also in terms of, having that relationship with someone who doesn't support your goals, your dreams, and all
Whoa,
that. Like, that's
get
that's
rid of
more what I
them.
was getting at. Yeah,
Get rid
exactly.
of
Right.
them.
As hard as that is, it's it's so easy to say, but I think until you've walked in those shoes and you've been in a relationship that is not supportive of who you are and what you're
Right.
working on, once you've experienced that, I have, and I could definitely just like it's like instant.
Oh, I have too.
Get out
Yep.
immediately. Right.
Well, it's
Run.
also, I think that
And
we have a little
yeah,
bit of a unique perspective in
yeah,
that everything was taken away from us in a
yes,
heartbeat.
yeah,
And I straight up, I would say the reason I had several relationships, over the years, or a few, I guess would be, I don't know if several, what the right word is, but
that's okay.
I
We'll
date,
pretend you didn't say it. Yeah,
I actively dated,
yeah, yeah.
um, you know, over the years in between my divorce and being married again. And I had no patience whatsoever for anybody that wasn't 100% in my corner. I had
Yeah.
none. And I think that Aaron dying really was the reason why that happened. I think that in the past I was willing to settle for something that took, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
took a lot of the oxygen out of the room every time I walked in with that person. But I wasn't handling it after that. Taking very much of it after that.
Yeah.
No. So
Yeah, it
anyway, yeah.
changes your perspective. Okay. We're going to get to a couple more things before I got to let you go. I obviously have to talk about our event too, so I don't forget. It's a Great American Summit. We are super excited to be working this out with you so that you can attend and speak, perform, however this evolves, is what we're looking forward to. So thank you so much for doing that. Can you talk
Yes.
for 1 second about the message that you're going to share with our audience there?
I want everyone to know, first off, who I am. I want them to get to know me personally, because that's, I think, the biggest connection or the biggest motivator is getting to know the real person behind it. The one thing that everyone has said about my shows is that I want that they feel like they could be standing on stage with me doing the same thing, that I'm a guy living a dream with talent. But I want to be able to show how you can overcome adversity over and over and over again and drive forward and use that adversity as fuel to a fire to make you even more successful. There are so many folks that I think that are stuck in trying to figure out how they're going to get past either it be loss or it be an adverse situation. But it really has a lot to do with your mentality and your heart. And I'm going to show that through getting to know who I am and the adversities that I went through and how I overcame those to become what I would consider relatively successful.
Yes, I would consider it to be more than relatively successful too, and on the way up. So thank you for that. I see you're wearing all this 9 Line apparel. 9 Line, Tyler will be at the event. The foundation is one of the beneficiaries. We also, for the first time, have Grunt Style participating. So we're trying to figure out something fun to do with Daniel and Tyler there. If you have any ideas, bring them.
Well, I was with Grunt Style first, and I was with 9 Line second. So I'll have all kinds of fun poking fun if you want me to.
Oh yeah. This is, if you can't have fun, then what's the point, right? So that's that. So before you come join us in April, you have more than a few other things going on. You're heading to Australia. You have a boot line that's really kicking up and moving on as well. You're speaking. You're doing all this. So talk about your projects like you have now. You have a new single coming out. You're shooting another video with the Benghazi guys, which is so freaking awesome. So pick all the above and dig into it. Tell people how they can get involved.
So I guess if you have obviously some military listeners out there, we'll talk about the 50 meter target, what's right in front of us. November 7th, I'm flying out to Hawaii to do an acoustic show and sing the national anthem for the Marine Recon Foundation, for the YMCA golf tournament that they have over there. Marine Recon Foundation is the benefactor at the restaurant. Super honored that they're bringing me out to Hawaii to do that. Obviously, a free trip to Hawaii to go do a show and be, it's a great thing. And then as soon as I get done with that on November 11th, we were going to do that. You talked about doing this podcast. I think it was somebody talked on
that was us.
Veterans Day.
You're like, unfortunately, I'm like, what? Unfortunately,
I'm flying straight from Hawaii to LAX to meet Kara, and we're flying over with one of the members of Professional Bull Riders for 3 concerts in Australia, starting November 18th, I believe it is. And we'll be in Townsville, Tamworth, and Melbourne in Australia, 3 different weeks. traveling in between. And then we're going to take a little personal time at the end of that and go to the South Island, New Zealand for a week and then fly back. So
Perfect.
December 11th, we'll be back home. And then next year, we're already busting loose on this thing because it's blown up a lot bigger than I expected it to. But I have actually, first I'll say, my cowboy, we have a brand new design, 2 designs coming out from my cowboy boot line. It's Ryan Weaver Old Glory by Lane, Lane boots. Check them out. They're beautiful American flag boots, but we have 2 new designs, a brown boot and an ankle zip boot coming out for women that don't like tall boots. And then we're also at dab smack in the middle of funding a brand new music video. We're going to have Tig, Tonto, and Boone. And this one, we'll have all 3 of the Benghazi survivors, but we have decided to go with a human trafficking PSA, which I'm extremely...
You're squiggling around when you move, you're getting a click in the audio. Sorry, I had to interrupt. We'll edit that part out, but go ahead. When you're moving around, it's like click, click, click. So yeah, start that again.
I'll do.
So the boot, start with the boot line. Yeah.
Okay.
Sit still, man. Okay.
So in January, all right, here we go. So in January, we have a new boot line that's coming out, or a new design of my boot line that's coming out. There'll be a brown one and a ankle zip version for women that don't like to wear tall boots. So it's Ryan Weaver Old Glory by Lane boots that are coming out in January. Excited about that. We're also smack dab in the middle of funding a new music video with the 3 Benghazi survivors, Tig, Tonto, and Boone. For this one, we had just Tig and Tonto in my first one, Burn. But this one, we've decided to take a little bit of a different route. It's my new single, Arrival, that actually got released in March. And we've decided to take a different route with it. We're going to do a human trafficking PSA and a music video combo. I'm going to get both of those done together. So we're extremely excited to get involved with a bunch of different organizations regarding the human trafficking problem that is starting to become an epidemic in the United States. If anyone out there is listening, wants to become a sponsor, if you want to sponsor be a sponsor cast member, or be on set as a sponsored VIP behind the scenes, we're taking sponsorships right now. And any corporations that want to do product placement, we're taking corporate sponsors as well for product placement.
Cool. That is a lot going on. So I'm glad for a lot of things. So I'm glad we caught you before you get swooped into your next cycle of insanity, so that we can get this locked and loaded and get this out there and introduce you to our community as well prior to our event, who's all going to be coming. So we like to ask everybody, because this is so important to us. Obviously, it's a large part of why we're doing what we're doing. For me, seeing people kind of trash the country, talk about how the American dream is dead, when our families have given up so much for everybody to experience that, was starting to impact me personally. So, we're creating our own American dream and going out there to remind people that that dream is alive and well. You are proof of concept as well of that. So I'm going to ask you, what does the American dream mean to you? Because we know it's something different to everybody. So I'm always curious to hear what it means to the particular person I'm speaking to.
With boots in the sand in Iraq in 2003 to standing on the center circle of the Grand Ole Opry stage in 2015 on September 11th, debuting without a record deal, record label, or a song on the radio, having a tour across the United States and with my boots on the Madison Square Garden sands and for the PBR, my own boot line, my own clothing line. If I'm not the example of the American dream, I don't know what is. Anybody in this country has the ability to chase it because of the sacrifices of those who are willing to lay it all on the line for us. We got to experience that firsthand. Unfortunately, our family experienced it twice. And if anyone can listen to my story and not see how you can come from nothing and accomplish something in the most amazing country in the world, I don't know what it would take to get you to understand that.
Perfect. Ryan, thank you so much. A, for your service, B, for the example you lead, and for supporting what we're doing and being willing to jump in and be a part of it and share your story with our community. We're super excited to see where you're going from here and to be a little part of it, coming up in April. So thank you so much. Tell people where they can follow you, connect with you, find out where you're performing, get involved with you.
You could search Ryan Weaver Country on Google and everything, all of my social media is going to come up. But if you do Ryan Weaver Country, because there's a Ryan Weaver baseball player that's out there right now that he's pretty famous or getting pretty famous. But if you do Ryan Weaver Country on Google, that's the best way to find. I could give you 5 different websites or my website and 5 different things. But if you do Ryan Weaver Country, that's the best way to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. You have an excellent day.
Thanks for having me. Be safe.